Let's go to the Rude guest hotline. Rude, the most reliable heating and air conditioning products in the DMV. And talk to a guy who knows a thing or two about the wide receiver position and has a lot of interest in how Washington is going to be trotting their receivers out in the weeks ahead. Former NFL great, 3-time Super Bowl champion and Pro Bowler Ed McCaffrey is with us on G&D. Ed, it's awesome to have you back on in D.C. How are you?
I am doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, we were just talking about how well Luke's been playing. Couple of touchdowns over 2 games and then the 50-yard diving grab. I mean, let's talk not even as a dad, as a receiver. How impressive was that catch and that concentration?
Yeah, that was a tough one. That was a big catch for him. I thought it gave our team a real spark during the game. We kind of turned things around after that, gained the momentum. So, yeah, sometimes you need big plays like that to get going. I was really happy for him. I know he's working incredibly hard to make plays and do his part to help the team, and that was a big one for him and a big one for the team.
Ed, what kind of sports dad are you? Are you every time my kid sneezes, it's the best sneeze of all time, or is it what you could have done on that route is actually stack him a little bit so he wasn't draped all over you? Like which end of the spectrum are you as a sports dad?
Oh man, well it depends. Well, I've coached all of my kids throughout their lives at some point. I was probably the hardest with my son Max because he was the oldest. He's coaching with the Dolphins now, but when I first started coaching him. I didn't really know when to take the coach's cap off and just be a dad. So, we'd go to practice, then he'd hear about it in the car ride home, then he'd hear about it at the dinner table. And then after we butted heads one too many times, I figured out over the course of time that it's much easier to coach through other coaches. So I started coaching our other coaches, and then they would give Max advice. And then it wasn't, some kind of constructive criticism from dad. It was one of his other coaches taught him something, then he'd be bragging about that at the dinner table later that night. So I had to learn, when to take the coach's cap off and just be a dad and when to be a coach. And luckily, my kids are pretty mature and they're super hardworking, so they understand that. But Luke, and every kid's a little bit different too. Sometimes I wait for them to ask me for advice rather than giving it to them unsolicited. So Luke's very inquisitive. He's a super fast learner. And he loves having conversations. So we talk all the time about ball. And so, we have a pretty good relationship in that way.
So you guys have to multitask, right? Because you got Christian with San Francisco, Luke here in D.C. How does the scheduling work for you and the wife and the travels during the football season? Are you going, all right, Thursdays and Mondays are easy because they're standalone, but Sundays are a little tougher? Like, how do you divvy it up?
Well, we look at all the games at the beginning of the season, so we have to put a big old calendar together of obviously the Dolphins, the 49ers, the Commanders, and then, my team, the Broncos as well, because they do stuff with the team and with the alumni. So we look at those schedules. In terms of going to games, we're always going to go to our kids' games, obviously, every week. So we try to go to the home games. And so the Commanders have 8 home games. The 49ers have 8 home games. 5 of them don't have a conflict for either team. 3 of them do. So in those cases, we have to make tough decisions. The Commanders actually play Miami in Madrid, so we're going to head out to Madrid, spend a week in Spain. That'll be fun.
Nice.
So we get to see 2 kids at the same time. But all in all, Lisa and I were kind of joking. It's kind of like a big year. We're probably going to get to close to 30 NFL games and close to 40 football games altogether, counting college and we go to high school games locally every now and again if we stick in town. But we love football. Thank goodness we love football. But the travel miles certainly start adding up.
I believe it. Ed McCaffrey with us here on Grant and Danny. Speaking of your kids, when are the 49ers going to start giving Christian the football? I mean, my goodness.
I know, right? Right?
On pace for almost 450 touches, Ed. What's that like as a dad?
Well, he had like 50-some in 5 days because they played a Sunday, then a Thursday night game.
That's right.
Back-to-back there. He loves it, man. He loves ball. So, as a dad, I'll speak as a father, right? I just love that my kids are doing what they love to do. I'm at peace with that, whether it was football or anything else. I don't care what it is. They just happen to love football. So he loves football. He loves the games. And, you got to put in the practice time and you got to work out and condition and eat right and get your sleep and do all those things to get ready for the games. But, and he loves getting the ball. I'm certainly not going to complain about touches. That's for sure.
Ed McCaffrey, 3 1,000-yard seasons, had a 100-catch, 1,300-yard year in the NFL. Just an excellent wide receiver in his time. Joining us here on Grant and Danny. And I want to bounce around the NFL with you a little bit, tap into some of your analytical roots here and some of the media stuff that you do. Get your thoughts on some of the storylines. Eagles last night really struggled with the Giants. They get doubled up. Philly just doesn't have an offensive identity 6 games in. It's pretty surprising. Hurts is struggling. They're banged up on the O-line. Receivers are frustrated. Barkley's not finding the same running room he did last year. What do you make of Philly right now?
I think that's a pretty good take. I mentioned on my show on Thursday, I do a show with SiriusXM NFL Radio every week, that Philadelphia seems to be the most unhappy at the time 4-1 team I've ever seen. Like for a team that's 4-1, there's a lot of disgruntled players and a lot of drama and a lot going on. Then you add in a couple of injuries. And, just going into that game, you wondered, does this team collectively have the right mindset? And, are they suffering a little bit maybe from the disease of me? Like, not enough footballs to go around. They won a Super Bowl, and they have a lot of star players. And sometimes, I don't know, maybe winning's not enough. Usually that's enough. You win. It doesn't matter who gets the ball and how many points you score and how you win. You win, and you celebrate as a team. But for whatever reason, and it's happened to other teams, it's not the first time it's happened to a team. It happened to Philadelphia a few years ago, if you remember. 49ers beat them Week 13 at the Link, and then they cratered the rest of the season. And it happens, right? Momentum is so important in sports, so important in football, not just throughout the course of a game, but throughout the course of a season. So maybe it's a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover that's starting to kick in. Maybe, they have to have some important player meetings and coach player meetings to kind of figure out how to right the ship. But I agree with you. They were a little off going into the game, and they seemed a little off during the game. And for a team with as much talent as they have and has had as much success as they've had over the last couple of years, they're in a little bit of a rut. It's up to them, right? They got to figure out. Hopefully, they don't figure it out before the Commanders play them, but they're going to have to figure it out if they want to right the ship.
And the Colts have been such an awesome story. They have the best point differential in the NFL. Their only loss was the game they probably should have won, and they sit there 4-1 atop that topsy-turvy AFC South. How good are they? It's obviously been fun through 5 weeks, but everyone kind of, I think, feels maybe secretly the other shoe's going to drop because it's Daniel Jones, right? ... How good is that team actually?
I think they're pretty solid. I think they have good balance. They play well as a team in all 3 phases. And, I've been watching Daniel Jones since he went to Duke. My oldest son, Max, went to Duke, so I've been watching him for a very long time. I don't always think he was in the best situation in terms of his relationship with his coaches and the players who were around him in New York. I think he's found a home. They have a real good run game there. It takes a little pressure off the quarterback. They got a couple of big-time receivers that are also willing to block in the run game. Defense is pretty solid, so I don't think it's a fluke. I always kind of felt, but you never know for sure till a guy plays on another team, that Daniel Jones was better maybe than what his statistics would suggest. And I think he's starting to prove that. And it's kind of funny, right? You look around the league now, Baker Mayfield is crushing it in Tampa Bay. He wasn't good enough for Cleveland or even Carolina, and him and Sam Darnold were on the same team in Carolina. Sam Darnold's gone on to kind of crush it, and now Daniel Jones. So sometimes it's not always just the player. Sometimes it's the fit, the scheme, the talent they have around them. But I don't think it's a fluke in Indianapolis. I think they're a competitive team, and I don't think anyone's going to just show up and beat them. They're going to have to earn it.
Ed McCaffrey, I'm going to tap into the division that you know so well from your playing days, the AFC West. Denver got a huge win over Philly at 3-2 now, well-positioned, tied for first with the Chargers, who are kind of free-falling. We just saw them, and you watched that game, right? I mean, the Chargers have a ton of injuries, can't protect Herbert, and yet the Chiefs have been unable to get their footing. They're 2-3. That division looks nothing like what anybody thought it would coming into the season, and have everybody a little lesser achieving than maybe anticipated. How do you see it sorting out as we go?
I think it's much more competitive than it's been in a long time. Kansas City has absolutely dominated the division since Super Bowl 50, the last time the Broncos were in a Super Bowl, and the Broncos finally got to the playoffs last year because the Chiefs rested all their starters last of the season. And they pretty much just completely dominated the division. So now it's a little more competitive. The Raiders are struggling. the Chiefs have dropped a couple early here, and the Broncos are right in the hunt. But I think the Chiefs are still the favorite. You want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And even though they're dropping a few games, I think they're going to be the favorite to win the division. Obviously, I'm rooting for the Broncos, and I think they have a real good chance because, Bo Nix is continuing to get better. There's some talent around him. I'd like to see the playmakers step up and continue to make explosive plays. They got a good run game going right now, and the defense is one of the best in the league. They're top run defense. I was games with a run on them successfully because I know they have an incredible secondary and a good pass rush, but teams haven't been able to do it so far. And some of that has to do with the offense putting up points and maybe playing with the lead. But I think it's the Chiefs and the Broncos and the Chargers. I have a ton of respect for Coach Harbaugh. The guy, he won everywhere he's been, and he was off to a great start. They lost both their starting tackles. I don't think they are tackles, and sudden you have some issues. Then they lost a running back, and it happens, right? We see it happen. You can't lose 3 or 4 or 5 key players at crucial positions and think you're going to be the same exact team. So he's going to really have to coach the best he's ever coached in his life. I know his team will be tough and they'll be physical, but he's down a couple of players and he's not getting them back. So, they're going to have to find out ways to eke out close wins. But they're a solid football team, and they've always come to play. They'll always be physical. So those types of teams always have a chance.
Well, Ed, before we let you go, I wanted to pass this along. So your guys are a little older than mine. I've got 2 boys that are 4 and a few months. But I do think as a dad, I wanted to tell you this. So you raised a good young man. I just told this story on the show yesterday. So I texted Luke. My son was driving along with my wife the other day. And out of the blue, like he knows the stars in town, like Jaden Daniels or whatever. But he just says kind of out of the blue, and we were like, wow, what did you just say? So he said when he loses his first tooth, he's going to use his tooth fairy money to get a Luke McCaffrey jersey. And we're like, wow, okay.
Okay, buddy.
Now, by the way, he's not losing a tooth anytime soon. So my wife texted me.
He's also not sure how much he's actually going to get for that tooth.
Yeah,
jerseys are pretty pricey.
It costs a little more than the going rate for the tooth fairy.
To
from what
lose
I
a
can
few
gather.
mouth of teeth.
But my wife texted me this, and so I just forwarded. I've gotten to know Luke pretty well, so I just forwarded him a screen grab of the text. And he got back to me. He's like, dude, don't let him do that. That's hard-earned money. Like, I'll put a jersey in the mail. And I was like, please don't do that. So I told him, do not send my kid a jersey. Like, that is ridiculous. You're busy. Do other things. But he's like, give me your address. And I'm like, no. So he sent him gloves. And my kid took today his gloves from Luke to show and tell and has been raving about them and running around the house wearing them for 2 days. So all I was doing was trying to tell your little guy that my son was a fan, and he was very, very nice. So I just wanted to pass that along.
Well, that is good to hear. I appreciate it. As a dad, I appreciate that. I wouldn't have known unless you told me, so thank you. And, man, you have a pretty generous tooth fairy out where you're living.
I was going to say, right?
Ours was not nearly as generous if they remembered it all. So good job.
I think
tooth fairy.
it's been a year or 2 now since my older daughter's last visit. I think the going rate's about $5.
I think it's $129.99 plus tax and shipping. I think is for a tooth.
Yeah, a little bit different than what my boy's anticipating, who has not lost a tooth yet. But appreciate the time. Thanks for hopping aboard with us.
Thanks, Ed.
Hey, thanks, guys. We'll do it again sometime. Thank you.
That'd be fun. Ed McCaffrey. And by the way, when he comes out to Commanders games, I've seen him out in the parking lot tailgating. He's with Tailgate Ted and them. He's like just a fan, just rocking a jersey, like happy to be there, hanging out with Commanders fans.
Pretty in shape guy that went for 1,000 a bunch of times in the league.
Can you imagine? You have 3 boys.
Yes.
Can you imagine having a son on the Niners, a son who coaches with the Dolphins, and then a son on the Commanders?
No.
Like basically, I don't
with
know.
all due respect to my guys, I love them, but no, I can't imagine.
What percentage? There's like 14 NFL games any given week or whatever. 21% of the games are McCaffrey-related games.
That's right.
As a father, just like, how are we doing this week? All right, here's my 3 teams. Wild.
Staggering.